Thank you, everybody. I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm George Trudeau. I'm director of the Center for the Performing Arts at Penn State. I guess our part of this is what must we do, because we are doing some things, and we want to share that with you and look forward to the conversation that will come about as a result of this. There's just a couple of things I would just want to preface with, and these are personal things, inspired a bit by the conversation we just had a chance and presentations we just had a chance to witness, and predicated by the fact that it's just amazing that we are all here together today at this moment talking about this subject, because for me this is an incredibly scary time. We've all sort of danced around this issue a little bit, but I think I want to get a little bit more pointed in just saying that I just feel like we're just entering uncharted territory as a country and as a world, and we don't know where this is going to go. And it's, for me, that's just, and Amy would know of all people that I'm the most optimistic person. I like to think and approach everything with a lot of optimism, but it's very challenging for me. Regardless, I think, really of who you voted for in the last election, which for me, you know, also sort of shaked my faith in my fellow human beings. But I'm trying to deal with that. I'm trying to think, what can I learn from my fellow human beings that will help me understand their perspective on life, on the world we live in, on this subject that we're here to talk about today. And the other personal thing, because it wasn't really fully formed when we went around the room, had to deal with empathy. It's been touched upon a little bit, but for me personally, I've been reflecting on moments that for me helped build empathy for other people and the lives that they live, the shoes that they walk in. And I think that certainly some of those moments occurred in the theater, but many of those moments just occurred in life as I had conversations with people, and frankly, as I stumbled and said something that was uninformed because I didn't have the information I needed. And fortunately, most of those times were with people who I had enough of a relationship, close enough relationship with, that we could trust each other, and they could share with me their perspective and help me understand that, and help me understand how uninformed I really was. I would like to think innocently. But I'm not sure, because I think that bias does play a role, and I grew up as a white man in this world, and I grew up in Oregon, which doesn't have a great history, unfortunately, of respect for other races, African-American race in particular. But I was fortunate that I was able to go to a very diverse high school, and I was fortunate that my father was in the arts and was an educator at Portland State University, ironically the other PSU. And so that gave me a foundation, but I had to build upon that foundation, and I continue to have to build upon that foundation. So I feel that what we're doing and what we're launching into at Penn State, for me, is as much a personal mission as it is a professional mission, and I'm inspired to share that with you today. My role here is to help you to sort of set the stage for my great colleagues are going to follow up with in much more detail, because Amy and Tom have really been tremendous leaders in getting us to this point in a very, very short space of time. And it really started, as a lot of things started on our campuses, with a conversation. We were hosting the Sphinx organization, and we'd invited Aaron Dorkin to campus. His wife was taken over as the leader. They were in that transition phase in September of 2015, and our Foreign and Black Affairs hosts a reception for new faculty of diverse faculty across the campus, and we asked them if they would consider inviting Aaron to talk, which he did, and the Catalyst performed And I found myself, after all that, standing in the middle of the room having a conversation with Tommy Hogan and meeting him for the first time. And I'm sure probably we can all think about those moments that we've had, serendipitous moments where we just met somebody and something happened. Really, our conversation, as I recall it, Tommy, was not so much about diversity issues, although Tommy's been involved in that, as you've heard, for many, many years at Penn State. But when I learned he was teaching human relations, and he had this human relations ethics class, and we talked about the role of the arts in that environment. These are young people are going to become human relations professionals working in companies large and small, and if they could maybe understand how the arts can inform their work and help them to build stronger, healthier communities in their companies, well, that would be really amazing to help them understand that and to be part of that. And so we embarked on a project with Tommy's Human Relations Ethics course. We've done we're just finishing the second semester of that, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. But in the course of that, because we'd started with Sphinx, because this was a 2-year project and we were bringing the Sphinx virtuosi back this season, they were with us at the end of September, that kept this conversation going, as well as being spurred by the university's efforts, which you've heard a little bit about as well. And Amy, who has really been a great leader in diversity on campus, serving on and chairing our LGBTQ commission. So conversations last summer started to really take off as we were looking forward to Sphinx, of course, but also the university placing a real emphasis this year on this subject as they're rolling out their strategic planning, the plan of the strategic plan. So with Tommy's guidance, because he knows a lot of people on campus that are involved in these conversations, many more than Amy and I had known, some we did, but Tommy helped us bring a lot of people to the table to form an informal steering committee. We actually took we were planning a community welcoming dinner for Sphinx, and with Tommy sort of put that into hyperdrive, I think, and it ended up happening on our stage in Eisenhower Auditorium with all of our partners at that point, and there are many more that have joined in on this collaborative project that we're involved to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion on a campus. And Tommy even called up our president, and he and his wife embraced this as well. I think they were traveling back in, and they managed to get back in time. They'll tell you more about that, but it was on the cusp of the university announcing what they call their all-in initiative. So the timing couldn't have been better. And we've continued those conversations this fall, planning, seeking support, and Amy will talk with you a little bit more about some of the projects that we're going to be rolling out the rest of this season. I think about this as sort of a startup year for us, kind of a pilot year. So think about it in that sense. It's not fully formed yet as we bring new partners, as we discover new opportunities, but we are tremendously excited and looking forward to sharing this with you and to hearing your thoughts, comments, and learning and being inspired by this convening together. So those are some brief remarks, and I'm going to turn it over to Tommy. You're next.
Boy, what a pleasure to be here. What an honor to be with my people. It's been such a pleasure to work with George and Amy and all the folks at the Center for the Performing Arts. The arts, what a passion of mine to have the opportunity to take my academic discipline, human resource management, and combine that with my passion has been a tremendous opportunity. I want to talk to you a little bit about myself before I, sort of out of order, just so you understand and where I'm coming from and inform you as to the work we're doing here at Penn State. So I grew up in the inner city of Pittsburgh, a neighborhood called the Hill District. At the time, it was predominantly African American. Drug abuse, prostitution, number running, not the kind of neighborhood you would want to raise your children in. McKeesport, my dad worked in a steel mill in McKeesport, so yesterday's performance was meaningful to me because McKeesport was always part of my background. I'm a Penn State alum, 2 master's degrees from Penn State, and I serve a variety of roles at Penn State. One, I'm a professor of practice in human resource management, consider myself a scholar practitioner. I serve on a number of commissions, advisory bodies, because as a scholar practitioner, what I seek to do is connect research and discovery with practice and delivery. So it's not just enough for me to research a topic, I actually want to be involved in part of providing a solution to those challenges. So I see Penn State as a living laboratory for my work. I co-chair our Commission on Racial Ethnic Diversity. I sit on the advisory body of the Office of Vice Provost for Educational Equity. I sit on the All In campaign steering committee. I'm vice chair of the Alumni Council of the Alumni Association's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I'm involved academically in my academic discipline in the area of diversity and inclusion and creating a welcoming environment, the Society for Human Resource Management. I have been appointed to the 2017 Special Expertise Panel on Diversity and Inclusion. And internationally, I'm involved with the International Standardization Organization and we've been tasked with creating a global HR standard on diversity and inclusion. Now, I share this background with you because hopefully it'll inform you as to some of the things we are doing at Penn State. And I want to start at a macro level because I think it's important for us to be successful in this space, not just on college campuses, but in my work, I'm interested in the global workplace, how the performing arts can be used as an agent of change to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion at Penn State, in higher education, in our communities, and in the global workplace. So from an institutional perspective, for us to be successful, I believe we need to have strong institutional leadership. Our president, Eric Barron, is a champion of diversity. I say that not from afar, but the fact that I serve on his president's commission, that I work with the other presidential commissions, that I've had multiple one-on-one discussions with President Barron. President Barron has come to my class on HR ethics and talked, most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, about ethical leadership. So I've had a chance to spend time with him and his leadership team exploring issues related to diversity and inclusion. So the point is, leadership and support at the highest level of any organization is critical. Our 2016-2020 strategic plan, one of the things I study strategic plans and strategic implementation, one of the things we know, in order for these to be effective, there needs to be alignment and interlock. And we have alignment and interlock between our 2016-2020 strategic plan, our capital campaign, which just kicked off, will be a 6-year program. Last time we raised over $2 billion. Haven't seen the numbers yet, but I'm sure it'll be north of that. There's alignment there. And in fact, when we talk about the strategic plan, I have it in front of me, at least an executive summary of it. It's interesting because we have 6 foundations. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just focus on the one that's most important to me in terms of this audience. One of the strategic foundations, the 6 foundations, fostering and embracing a diverse world. And what we mean by that is students, faculty, and staff are rightfully demanding the university be inclusive and make meaningful efforts to be successful and accountable. Penn State is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion across all of its campuses. So that's what we mean by that. And that is one of 6 foundations. There are 5 thematic priorities at Penn State. The one I want to zero in on is advancing the arts and humanities. Penn State will be a leader in the arts and humanities, utilizing them along with the sciences and other disciplines as agents of change in addressing complex global issues. And I would suggest that diversity, inclusion, and creating a welcoming environment is a complex social issue. So that's from our strategic plan. I talked a little bit about our capital improvement plan. I also want to mention from my background, which a lot of people don't know, is I spent 23 years at AT&T prior to coming to academia. Had a variety of roles: sales, sales support, business development, marketing, and HR. And in my last assignment, I was Director of Strategic Talent Acquisition, Workforce Diversity, and EOAA. So I tend to have a corporate mindset in terms of this issue, which is very different than some of the academic institutions, and I've been associated with 2. So I approach this topic a little bit differently. Let me talk a little bit about our Diversity and Inclusion Collaborative Initiative at Penn State. First of all, the All-In campaign, which kind of sets the tone for our initiative. Kickoff was October 6th. George mentioned that. It was on the lawn of Old Main. Big multimedia campaign and kickoff. It was awesome. What is it? It's a thematic campaign. It's ongoing. It's evidence of our support of ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion and creating a welcoming environment. The origin of this campaign came about from President Barron having discussions with students. There are a lot of ways for a leader to collect information about what's happening within their environment. Quantitative information, surveys. President Barron likes to meet with individual groups, and so the All-In campaign came about from these discussions with students who indicated that we need to create a more welcoming learning environment at Penn State. And I was talking to a number of people during the breaks, and we feel that we've made a lot of progress. But we feel that there is a lot of room for improvement. And so it's this continuous improvement attitude that we have. The university encourages other entities at the university to jump on board, launch their own initiatives relative to the All-In campaign. And so it is not a top-down approach. It is more promoting organic initiatives. And we want to talk a little bit about one that we've created, which is, George mentioned, this Diversity and Inclusion Collaborative Initiative. We have a number of strategic principles. You're going to get a leaf behind that will capture the essence of what I'm talking about. But our strategic principle is we want Penn State to become a global leader in promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and creating a welcoming environment by using the performing arts as an agent of change. Our source documents are already mentioned, the strategic plan, 2016-2020. There are a number of goals that we have. We want to expose, educate, influence, and assess. The assessment portion is extremely important. So as a scholar practitioner, we want to be able to measure what impact we are having on program participants as well as our university community. So these programs, and Amy will talk about some of them, what are the outcomes? What are the impacts? Not an easy thing to do, not an easy thing to measure. So we've engaged the support of the Social Science Research Institute at Penn State to help us assess and measure what kind of impact that we're having. Our principles, all about collaboration, sharing resources, leveraging talent. We find that many times there are great things that are going on in different places at the university. We're trying to bring those people together to work on this initiative, and we've had some success thus far, and we're really excited. As George says, we're really just kicking off. We're in the early phase of this. Fundraising, this has been mentioned a number of times here, is a major challenge. We're in the middle of raising funds, both in the short term as well as on a more sustainable basis over the long haul. So we're very excited about that. A lot of my work, and we're able to make these connections across campus, and you'll see we have right now about 15 units, including most recently World Campus. What can you do with technology? Penn State Outreach includes our TV station and our World Campus. We're very excited about the possibility of partnering with World Campus to leverage technology to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion using the performing arts. So let's see what I've skipped. I think that's pretty much some of the key points that I wanted to make to you in terms of what we're trying to accomplish at Penn State. We find that we have a number of people who are very open to our message. This collaborative diversity and inclusion initiative, it's pursuant to the All In campaign. We have the strategic plan on our side. The capital campaign is set up to align with the strategic plan. That has not always been the case. But now the capital campaign is designed to raise funds for the strategic priorities identified by the strategic plan. So again, alignment and interlock we find are necessary to move the ball forward. On that note, I'll turn it over to Amy, who will talk to you in some more detail.
So I hope you realize just from meeting and hearing from Tom how much fun we've been having with this initiative. The Center for the Performing Arts at Penn State has done work in relation to diversity and inclusion, well, at least in the 19 years that I've been there. It's an extremely important part of our work. But what this initiative has done, both the all-in larger initiative and then the Diversity and Inclusion Collaborative in the Arts, has given it shape and focus. And the other thing that I will give complete credit to Professor Dr. Thomas Hogan for is helping us think not small. I'm just going to tell you a super quick story. As George mentioned, we re-engaged the Sphinx Virtuosi this fall after having the Catalyst Quartet, which is, in case you don't know, one of the 4 quartets that comprises the larger Sphinx Virtuosi last year. So when the whole ensemble was coming, we were, of course, planning the activities, and one of the people from Sphinx Virtuosi said, you know, I think a welcoming dinner would really set the tone nicely, kind of help the musicians meet your community of color where you are, and just kind of set the tone for the rest of the engagement. Okay, so we start, okay, we're gonna, we have a connection to the African American church in our community. We'll have a potluck dinner in the basement of our African American church for them. Nice exchange, very informal. Enter Professor Dr. Tom Hogan, and what ended up happening as a result of his incredible vision and this introduction of this Arts and Inclusion Collaborative was what you see here, which happened on Eisenhower Stage. It was basically, the audience was comprised of all the champions of diversity and inclusion across the entire university and our community. We had a musical exchange between the, actually it was the Catalyst Quartet, part of the Sphinx Virtuosi, and our incredible, amazing gospel choir on campus called Essence of Joy. Unbelievable. As was mentioned, President Barron came, stayed the entire time, made remarks, kind of viewed it as the soft opening for the next week's launch of the actual All-In campaign. So just such great things have been happening when we don't think and play small, and I assure you that would not have happened had we not had the incredibly fortuitous intervention with Tom. So what has this initiative done for us so far? It's opened doors not normally open to us. In the next couple, well, actually, we're moving into January. We're having a meeting with our mayor, who is an incredible woman, very supportive. We have our State College Borough has its own non-discrimination policy already in place, but how can she help us spread this diversity and inclusion through the arts initiative into the community so that it is not just experiencing insularity on campus. We met with the chair of the Faculty Senate, who set us on this amazing course to meet with the brand new established one-person office of general education. Penn State has undergone over the last 3 years a huge exploration of reform in the gen ed realm. And one of those areas that they have decided to put in place is interdomain courses, which I know some of you have referenced already, that goes on your campus. The problem with now, very soon, requiring students to have 6 credits of these interdomain courses is there are no interdomain courses developed, very few. Very few. And at Penn State, not quite to the scale of Arizona, but when you enact any kind of policy or procedure, you're affecting a ton of people. So just a ton of these interdomain classes need to be developed. So we're exploring with that office how the Center for the Performing Arts can be right in the ground level of reforming and helping to develop these interdomain courses, which is not a thing that we would have ever even been aware of had we not been already engaged in such a meaningful way in this work. Tom mentioned World Campus, so many others. The doors are just flying open. Everybody we've met with has been unbelievably supportive and willing to jump in with both feet with us on this. I just want to get back to the Sphinx Virtuosi's visit for a quick second. The engagement included a visit by one of the Sphinx quartets to Tom's upper-level human resources course, with whom we partnered on a class project this semester. If you will, I just want to read 2 brief feedback snippets from the students that experienced this visit. These are primarily senior-level students who are about to embark on a career in corporate America, and I just thought hearing their voice verbatim quickly just might illustrate the impacts that this initiative is having. One says, the performing arts can be used as an agent of change to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and a more sustainable organization and society by studying and mirroring the strategies that they use while adapting to changed environments and situations. A role that the performing arts may play in relation to workforce creativity, flexibility, adaptability, resilience, and productivity is an example. Within the performing arts community, people have to be dedicated and focused as well as adaptable and flexible. Those characteristics seem like they would not fit, but to become an artist, you must make a commitment early on and be dedicated to it. Once you're in the career, you may need to be flexible and work many different jobs and hours that differ from the norm, spoken like a true person that's going into corporate America, right? Do any of us in this room know what the norm is? Some takeaways that I thought, this is still this person, some takeaways that I thought were interesting from the performance and chat are as follows. Listening, looking, and interacting are keys to success. If you want to be good at your job, you need to be engaged, be willing to accept criticism, and remember that it is not personal, it's about the results. Also, you're all on the same team because you are qualified, so that criticism is coming from someone who knows what they're talking about. So I just thought that was, from these people who, most of whom in the class had no previous arts experience at all. I thought that was a pretty darn good immediate effect of this session that lasted, 50 minutes. Second little snippet from another student. First, I really enjoyed the performance yesterday, and I never expected that there were so many things that performing arts had that were parallel to what we learn in class. My first takeaway was about situational leadership. They talked about before performance, they did not have lots of time to practice. They only practiced for weeks, so that during the performance, everyone could be the leader, depending on which part they were playing. Even though the leader could make wrong decisions at that moment, the others still had to follow and be compromised. My second takeaway would be that the teamwork spirit. One of the main missions of Sphinx Virtuosi is to bring diversity to performing arts and most of the members were winners of the competition of each year. It seems that it would be hard to work together, however, they work for a common goal and respect each other. So again, just kind of showing that they can relate it to the concepts from the course, and I thought that was a major success, and we're super excited to continue in this vein. So what's next for us? Very specifically, in February, we're going to be hosting Ballet Folclorico de Bahia. Then this initiative has allowed us to actually get some funding from and connect with the Portuguese department. That's a first in the 19 years. It might seem a little obvious in terms of Ballet Folclorico de Bahia, but they're going to actually lead the faculty and students in the Portuguese department in a capoeira workshop. I guarantee you that is a first. Penn State Altoona, which is a Penn State considers itself one university geographically dispersed. That is a campus that's about 45 minutes from us, with whom we enjoy a great relationship, and we're very excited to be able to provide them with arts immersion opportunities when that's possible. And a sort of a unique event in which the company is going to participate in research sharing on how water affects culture with engineering students who will just have returned from presenting at the A2RU conference. That, for some reason, I was not coming up with conference, and the theme of that conference is water. So that's kind of what's next, what we've been up to, and we are super excited to answer any of your questions when Jerry deems that it is time appropriate for you to ask them. So thanks.